Hey folks, welcome to Moonshift Audio. This week I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can add depth, dimension and interest to a single track vocal without using traditional reverb and delay techniques. I put out a new video every week, so please do like and subscribe, or if you'd like to work with me as a mix engineer or producer, you can get in touch at moonshiftaudio.com. But for now, let's jump into Cubase and take a look at these vocal tips. Okay, so here we are in Cubase, and I've got a very simple sketch that I've made here of just a drum loop from Spice, a vocal from Spice, and some bass and keys. It sounds like this.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same place. You and I are not so different.
And you probably see that I've got 5 different effects tracks here on the left, and that's what I'm going to be showing you today. So I'll just give you a very quick look at the vocal. I have not spent a lot of time on this. I've slammed it with an RVox just to get it nice and loud. I have put a bit of very basic EQ on, just sort of sounding a bit thin. And I've put the good old Moog Airband, just a tiny bit of a brightness boost with this one. Just to get a bit of a pop sparkle on there. And that's basically it. I'm not going to get into these very simple backing elements. I literally just threw them together for this tutorial. So let's get a look at these different effects that I've pulled up. The first one is a chorus. Now, it's a really good idea to use this as a send effect rather than just dropping it on the track, because you get a bit more control over it that way. So I'm sending from that vocal, you can see, to almost all of these effects, and at the moment I've just muted the return, so we're not hearing any of them at the moment. I'll just solo the vocal, and in a second I'll unmute the chorus.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same place. You and I, we're not so different.
And without.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same place.
Now, I really like this chorus. This is a UAD plugin. It's a sort of model of a Roland Dimension D, I think it's called. You've got a few different modulation modes, but that's literally it. You've got 4 buttons that you can use. You can have 4 different modes. I like number 4.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning.
But you can also turn on more than one.
We're not so different.
I've been using number 2 and number 4.
Hold up, worlds start colliding.
And you can hear it just adds a very subtle bit of width to the vocal, but it's not a noticeable effect. It's a really nice way of just getting a subtle bit of width. And you can pull this down in the mix. So you can see here, I'm just pulling the volume down with my controller. I'll fade that up.
Just free riding. So much.
Obviously you can go quite hard on it, but just a little bit. It's just a nice way.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the...
To add a little bit of interest, a little bit of thickness, a bit of depth and a bit of width to that vocal. Sometimes S's in particular can sound a little bit weird when you throw to a chorus. So I've just thrown a de-esser before the chorus so that the signal before it comes into the chorus unit is getting de-essed quite heavily.
Drowning in the same place. You and I will not...
Now, if you don't have this plugin, you can use any chorus, although I like that one because it is very subtle and it's a classic effect. But this is just the stock chorus from Cubase.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same place. You and I, we're not so different.
It's just not quite as subtle and it sounds a little bit washy. But if you tweak that or play around with the chorus, if you've got any other ones available, or the chorus that's in your DAW, pretty much every DAW will come with a stock chorus effect. So there's definitely ways you can play around with that. But in general, chorus I really, really like. Now, that almost starts to sound like part of the dry vocal. So you might want to make a bus, group together the vocal and the chorus, and then send from those to other effects. But you don't have to. The second way of thickening up a vocal that I'm going to look at today is using Soundtoys Microshift. Now, we use the Soundtoys plugins a lot, but I don't think this one gets much attention, and I really like it. Pretty sure it's based on an old Eventide processor called an H3000, and you can get plug-in versions of that. I think I might even have one somewhere, but this does a simple thing, and it does it really, really well. It basically splits the signal left and right, detunes them a bit, and delays them a little bit. So you've got quite simple controls, and I've just pulled up a preset here, which is like a lead vocal spreader, and it sounds great. It's not as subtle as the Dimension Chorus was.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same
You can really hear the width there.
You and I, we're not so different. Hold up, worlds dark colliding.
Pull that down in the mix a bit.
No feels, we're just free riding. So much, just time to let it in.
So now, that vocal sounds quite natural.
Slow down.
Certainly, I'm not listening to that going, wow, heavily processed vocal. But if I turn this off, you really miss it. Just A-B that again.
Hold up, worlds start colliding. No feels, we're just free riding. So much, just time to let it in.
So, two ways there of just adding a really nice subtle bit of width and depth to a single track vocal. Obviously, if you want to get into adding harmonies and doubles and panning doubles left and right and all the rest of it, then there's loads you can do. But these are just some simple tricks that I think are quite effective that you might still want to use on your main central vocal. Next up, delay, but with a little bit of a spin. So I've just got an Echo Boy here on the stock preset. Nothing unusual going on at all. On an 8th, I've pulled the feedback down so we only get one repeat, but I've panned it, this actual delay return, I've panned it to the left. So this might sound a little bit weird.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space.
Make this a bit louder.
We're drowning in the same place. You and I, we're not so different.
So it's a bit weird having an 8th note delay all the way to the left. But what I'm then doing is sending from this delay to a reverb. I've used Valhalla Room on an ambience, so a really, really small reverb. And I've panned the reverb all the way to the right. So what you then end up with is a dry delay on the left and a fully wet reverb of the delay on the right. And it sounds like this.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same place.
Now, obviously, that is quite intense and really distracting. But if we pull the volume down, or you could also just send less from the vocal. But I'm going to pull this delay way back.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same place. You and I, we're not so different.
Now, that sounds a little bit like just a reverb, but it's definitely got a little bit more left and right going on. Let's listen to it in the mix.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same.
I'll push it up a little bit.
You and I, we're not so different. Hold up, worlds start colliding. No feels, we're just free riding.
Now, I wouldn't push that really high in the mix, but just subtly tucked in the back there, I think it's really adding a nice bit of depth to that vocal and just that little bit of left to right spread that helps keep things interesting. Just for comparison, I've also sent to a bog standard reverb. I've done the usual Abbey Road trick there to scoop out the lows and the highs, and it's literally Valhalla Vintage Verb on its stock preset with the decay pulled back a little bit. Great reverb, love it. Let's just listen to that.
Slow down, we're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same place. You and I, we're not so different.
I'm not going to spend ages and ages tweaking this reverb. It's just here for comparison, but we can listen to that in the mix.
Hold up, worlds start colliding. No feels, we're just free riding. So much, just time to let it in.
So obviously that has added some depth
Slow down
to the vocal. It's a reverb. That's one of the things that reverbs are always going to do. But That micro shift thickens it up really nicely.
Worlds start colliding. New feels with just free riding. So much, just time to let it in. Slow down, we'll move.
I really like that. I think the delay and the micro shift, we can hear it with the chorus.
We're moving in the same space. Flash flood, we're drowning in the same place. You and I
Have to be a bit careful with some of these adding volume to the vocal.
Hold up, worlds start colliding. New feels with just free riding.
But there you have 3 different ways to add extra width, depth and interest to a single track lead vocal. That's it for this week, but please do like and subscribe for more tips, tricks, resources and downloads from me at Moonshift Audio. Till next time.